Thank you, everybody, for attending today, the second in a series of webinars. Haven't come up with a name yet, so if anybody has a name that they think was appropriate, let us know. We have a few suggestions, but I think we get lawyers involved in some of the things that we're talking about. So my name's Ed Durbin. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Business Development for Explicate. Long story short, we're a group of, I like saying trusted business advisors. Some people say consultants with over 120 years of experience working with some of the largest companies in the world, whether it's OpEx, CX, transformation, whatever the customer needs. We listen to the voice of the customer, we understand their problems, we understand their outcomes, and then we partner with them to try to figure out how we can meet their goals and put together a plan for success. But enough of the commercial. Joining me today is a good friend. And by the way, I think we've known each other almost 25 years.
At
Yikes.
least, yeah, at
At
least.
least. At least. Mr. Paul Wyatt, thank you very much for coming on today so we can talk about the retailer's Christmas countdown. Before we get started though, what are you doing today? Let's talk about what's keeping you busy today.
Yeah, I have one of the toughest jobs I've ever had in my career. As later today, I have to take care of four of my grandkids, age 2 to 10, which includes gymnastics class, swimming this afternoon, and then soccer practice.
You're gonna need a nap somewhere in there, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, that's great. But aren't you doing something in the business world too?
Yeah, I'm working with my son on a company that's called Verson AI, Virsyn. And we're dealing with AI agentic in helping small businesses. These are companies under 10 employees, generally around a million, 2 million in revenue, that can't afford much automation or assistance. And what we're able to do at a very reasonable cost is to make their operations 24/7. One of the most common use cases is like health insurance agents who, particularly during Medicare sign up, are trying to handle 25 to 50 phone calls a week. And at the same time, they're 100% booked for appointments. And the agentic AI is able to take and manage all that, get the appointment set, and also provide valuable information to them.
Well, that's great. It's almost like AI isn't just for the big guys anymore.
Yeah, I grew up, at least 10 years of my time at Macy's was inside of call centers and identifying the number of outreach and customer experience opportunities there. And, we would not have ever accepted dropped calls. And in some of these smaller businesses, it's not unusual for 50 or 60% of the calls to go unanswered.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's great. Well, keeps you busy besides the grandkids.
Yeah.
You're getting to use your all the years of experience, and I know you have a lot of that. Speaking of which, do you really have 37 years at Macy's?
Yeah, I was 37. They would argue it was 30 that I worked and 7 that I was there in addition. Little humor there.
I got
But yeah, I started pretty young and had a good run there.
Well, I do, like I said earlier, I believe are about 25 years back in the days of QRS Corp. Yeah, it was QRS
Yeah.
Corporation, but we'll save that for another day. So let's frame this out. So here we are. When this goes out, we're going to be 2 weeks away from Christmas. So you're in your office, Macy's, Herald Square, or across the street. I know you moved once or twice. So let's just say you're in your office up there at Herald Square, 2 weeks out. So what what is what's the biggest thing that you're dealing with 2 weeks out from Christmas?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go all the way back to February the year before to
Go
get
ahead.
to the
Great.
2 weeks. And
Good.
and this is during the post 2010 time period when there was really a leadership at Macy's that was very actively involved with voice of customer, connecting with associates, being proactive, inclusive, driving to make sure that the defects and almost Six Sigma like process improvements took place, and really full cycle on coming out of a holiday season and saying, okay, what can we do different and better next year? And in this instance, the leadership decided that they would like to explore opening on Thanksgiving Day, which was unprecedented at its time and pretty controversial because it was viewed as a day for the family and all kinds of things. And of course, there's the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. So they set a small group of us out to get voice of customer, to get voice of an associate, and to really come back and say, would this even float? Would anybody, if we threw a party, would anybody even show up?
Right, right.
And and then if you do something like that, how do you run it all the way through the holiday? Because if you all of a sudden are open on Thanksgiving Day overnight and you run 24 hours straight, as an example, or 30 hours straight, can your team handle it? Very a significant amount of sensitivity around that. So the analysis came back and said, customers really looking for an exciting reason to do something different. They want that change in experience. And the associate population came back and said, oh, that would be awesome. I would like to do something different, and I'd like to be there when when my customers are there. And so there was a willingness of two parties, again, still pretty high risk, to pull that off. And then it came down to, and how do you do that? And so we took and built out some tools that allowed us to do forecasting ahead of time and be predictive about what it would look like from 6 p.m. Thanksgiving Day through 6 a.m. the next morning, which were the new hours. And how would you
Wow.
staff it and operate it? And again, still fearful of, if we throw a party, will anybody show up? So heavy analytics, forecasting, and then communication with the associate population, 100,000 employees, and asking them, would they like to volunteer to work? Now, holidays paid double time or whatever it was, whatever the legal requirement was, or the contractual. So that incentive was built in, but we decided as a company to make it a choice model, not knowing if we would get 10% of the shifts filled or 100%. And it ended up being well north of 50 that were filled, which meant the rest could be filled with seasonal hires. But it also gave us a really clear indication of, if you include a group, what level of support you could get from them if you've included them from the beginning.
Right.
So the choice model was just a huge success. And then it just came down to what happens on Thanksgiving Day when you open early. And I'll never forget coming up to Herald Square about an hour before the store was going to open. And there was a line of 4 to 6 people wide all the way around that whole city block,
Wow.
waiting to get in. And the stream of people, once the doors opened, just continued for what seemed like forever, but I would say at least a good hour for everybody to get in. And it
They
was,
wanted to come to the party.
they wanted to come to the party. So the research and listening to the voice of the customer was really paying off. And keep in mind, we were doing this across more than 800 locations.
Wow.
And so the reaction was very similar almost every place. Um, and the behavior was just joyful shopping. And it was a different experience. And so that was just a wonderful piece of it. And one of my favorite pieces of it was inside that timeline, there was a reporter from, I'll just say a New York newspaper, I'll leave it at that, who wanted to talk to a couple of the employees with kind of a bias of how do they react to having to work, being made to work.
Being made to work. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was amazing to listen to unfiltered from the associate population telling the reporter about that they joyfully selected it because of a number of reasons. They wanted to be there for the customer. They wanted to avoid Thanksgiving dinner with their in-laws, or that their family spent most of that time watching football games, and they were not a football fan. And so there was a myriad of reasons of why people were there, but 100% of the core associate population were there because they had asked to. One other thing, Ed, that I'll mention is if they worked that first shift of it, they were eligible to take the rest of Black Friday off. And for many of these people, they'd never had a Black Friday off and they've never been able to go shopping themselves.
Uh-huh.
And so this allowed them to have that experience also. So it was
Wow.
just very joyful.
So
Um,
did the once the sales numbers come in, did somebody say that was a wise idea for us to
it
be
was
open that long?
it was a very wise idea, and I though I won't quote exact numbers, I can tell you that it ended up being 10x the largest no, largest day. So it was just an amazing event, and it really propelled us to a good, solid start of the season, and just a lot of satisfaction out of how to handle that type of event.
Well, I love the idea that you're focused, that you went out and asked the customers, and the customers resoundingly said, well, heck yeah, we want to come to the party. But what I think is even better, and I think which is sort of missing a little bit today, that frontline employee, the employee getting their buy-in, and for them to step and say, yeah, I want to be in there for my customers. I want to be part of that excitement, which it was. So that was that's pretty cool to be
Yeah.
able to say that what you thought would happen happened 10x. So I mean, that's fantastic. And how long did you guys end up doing that?
Yeah, so that lasted, I'm going to say up until basically COVID.
Yeah,
So
that was my next
2018,
question.
2019.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if it'll ever be revisited again. And primarily not because there may not be demand, but because the shopping behaviors have changed
Oh,
with e-com, being a massive a part of the business now.
yeah.
But we continue to see that people are looking for different experiences. So I know I'm counting on Macy's, the smart people at Macy's, to continue to find ways to refine the experience and win.
Was this before Macy's.com really got rolling or at the same time?
So it was right at that cusp. And I was involved before I went up to New York. I was involved with the build out of Macy's.com for about 10 years on the contact center side. And so, I could see the business, doubling in size every single year
Yeah.
and the activities related about that.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that in a little bit if you want me to.
Sure, sure. Well,
But
it's interesting because we both, I had the great pleasure of at least 7 years of going to the University of Arizona Terry Lundgren retail event, which
yeah,
is wild for everybody that's listening. You go to New York, if you see Terry Lundgren, you're not going to get near him. I mean, that man is just locked down. But you got to spend 3 days with Terry Lundgren, breakfast, lunch, dinner afterwards, and he would put together great speakers. It was for the university, but it was sort of like a center of the universe for retail for those 3 days. I mean, he would have Tommy Hilfiger come in, all sorts of different people to speak. And I remember him talking about when things really started, these inventive ideas that you're talking about, that when Macy's.com, they were shocked, well, happy that for like every dollar at Macy's.com generated like $5 at the stores because people are like, well, heck, if I bought this online, this is great. Well, I think I should go check out the store. And it was almost like driving sales into the stores. I don't know what that's like today because of, like you said, this whole e-commerce, all commerce at any time, the way things are going today. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed, you know, dealing with Macy's in the earlier years and then having the ability of hanging out with Terry Lundgren and getting he would openly talk about the strategies that they were putting together with Macy's, and it goes hand in hand with everything that you've been talking about.
Yeah. And just finishing out Christmas and going that full cycle of process improvement is we came out of that and we got into the final 14 days of Christmas. And, it's a crazy time. Everybody's buying just everything that's left. And in some cases, we're running out of things. But the joy and the participation by our core associates stayed all the way through the season of that year. And so there was just a lot of satisfaction out of it. And one of the key pieces that came out of it was the annual feedback that we went through from
Hmm.
our employees and from our customers on what worked, what didn't work. And the one very clear message was, hey, that was really nice. You listened to us of when we wanted to work for Black Friday. Uh, what would you think about doing that year round?
Oh,
And so
wow.
out of that, we invented uh, the MSPA product, which allowed for employees to have full self-service and to be able to tell us their preferences ahead of time year round. And it also allowed us, because of the predictive models that we had built out for Black Friday, to be able to be predictive enough to, when it came around to holiday the next year, we were able to produce the schedules and allow people to have choices 6 weeks out. So they had all of their week of Black Friday through January 1st schedules live online. They could swap, trade, advertise
Using their phone.
using their phone or a PC.
Yeah, yeah.
And, this is years in advance of other major companies being able to do that. Today, I think in terms of companies like WorkJam,
Yeah.
do that as a core, and they're best in class, and they really help with the employee engagement and the communication and all those core things that I can tell you firsthand are of extreme value.
Do you agree or disagree with retail today? And I don't know if you're going to blame COVID on this, but I feel like, and like I said, you and I have been around a long time. And I could be totally wrong, and I want you to tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like the focus on the employee, the frontline worker, I don't know. I feel like it's not as good as it used to be. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I'm not going to say I have a clear point of view on it. I've most of the time I've seen tools that allow for, I'll call it invisible engagement. And again, using WorkJam as one of the core examples on it, where there's messaging that for 3 to 5 minutes from a leader that they would have never gotten before.
All right.
And so they may have engagement there. It does not necessarily mean, I'll call it the physical on-site manager engagement. I've seen a change in that. The one other piece that has really come into play is for many of these large companies, half, if not more, of their business is e-com,
Good point.
and that changes uh, the where the employee works. Do they work out of a distribution center? Do they work out of a call center? Do they work out of a store?
Right.
And in many cases, as we saw, particularly uh, late in 16, 17, 18, 19, was the amount of space in retail needed to be reduced
Yeah.
because so much of the business moved to online.
Yeah. Yeah. I know several retailers have reduced their footprint by 50% because the other 50% they're using as a fulfillment center. So when somebody orders a product within their region, it's being fulfilled out of that space in the store, to get the product out into people's hands. But that's a good point. I mean, when this first got started and everybody was talking about frontline and the employee experience, which employee experience is still, I think, very, very key today. Yeah, you're right. We're the consumer, and we're all consumers. Let's face it. I can sit there either on my phone, on my laptop. I can run over to the mall. I can run over to the store. So your choices today are very, very extensive. Do you have any particular, because you mentioned the call center, As you got deeper and deeper into that, and we know for a short period of time I was in that line of business.
Right.
Did you recognize anything that enabled you to streamline the process or recognize a possible problem or, anything along those lines?
Yeah. So I'll start out this way. When Macy's.com started, it was a desktop business. And what that means is the CEO or senior VP of Macy's.com was filling orders on his desktop. So he would send somebody out on the floor in San Francisco. They would go pick the item and he would fill the order. And, they may get $200 for the day or $500. And that quickly moved to a $20 million business and then a 40. And I remember saying somewhere along the lines, something like, if this ever becomes meaningful, let me know and I'll have my team help out. And the next year he called me back and said, we passed 80 million.
Wow.
And so it was doubling every year. And so formally, Macy's put a group together to handle the growth of both Macy's.com and Bloomie's.com. And I was involved on the call center side as well as some of the strategy. And what was interesting on the call center side is there were 9 verticals to deal with on customers wanting to buy things.
Yep.
Macy's.com, Bloomie's.com, Macy's by mail, Bloomie's by mail,
Oh yeah.
Macy's mail and order, Bloomingdale's mail and order, and on and on and on. And all of them had siloed systems, and none of the people were cross-trained, and it was as antiquated as it could be. And then also the other background on Macy's is Macy's was a combination of 60 regional department stores that were combined over, gosh, a 40-year time period. And so even inside of things like mail and phone, 10 of the divisions or 10 of the 2/3 of the company may operate on one platform and someone else may operate on another. And so building out a strategy that said Macy's and Bloomingdale's.com are going to be the drivers for us. And basically all of these customers are calling in or contacting us to buy something. And so how can we take the friction out of all of that? And so there were things like once we took all of the divisions catalogs and put them online, it eliminated the need for Macy's by mail as an example. Because that meant you could place an order online or you could call into the Macy's.com line and that was cataloged so you could find it and get it fulfilled and everything else. And so finding out how to connect all these points was really the first wave of all of this. And to be able to get a group that could handle customers wanting to place orders and all the service elements around there, cancel an order, change an address, all those pieces. The next wave after that really was a very compelling one, which was now you can clearly see how many defects you have. Why did they have to call?
Right.
And all the elements on that. And there was a book that was written in 2008, and it was about Amazon, and it's called, and it really gave us a rabbit to chase, but it was called The Best Service is No Service. And what it did is it built out tracking and identification of anytime you interrupt a customer's shopping experience, you should consider it a defect. You've
Yeah.
interrupted their day. And so we would catalog these elements and identify what was the root cause. Was it the buying organization didn't put a description in correctly, or the credit group system didn't connect right to the site?
Yep.
And we would go through all of these elements to great detail to get to root cause and determine what the VOC and the data determined we needed to fix. And our objective, because MCOM was and BCOM were doubling every year, was And if you think about it, if you had a group of, let's say, 300 associates working on this, well, if next year you didn't do anything about it, you'd be at 600, then 1,200, and then, about the population of New York City
Yeah.
eventually. And so you wanted to avoid that. And so we had a very clear mission around eliminating half of the defects each year, which meant the organization stayed the same size as the sales doubled.
Okay.
And a lot of defect elimination activities, Six Sigma and process improvement,
Oh yeah.
but we had to be very aggressive about it. And there were many times, particularly in prep for the fourth quarter, that we had to make sure something was in place because if you didn't eliminate them during the fourth quarter, which would be about 40% of your inquiries, and it was double from last year, all of a sudden you had something that was going to shut down everything.
Yeah.
And because your organization couldn't handle more than what was going to come in, and so all of a sudden, if you had a major defect that wasn't fixed, it could cause chaos. So it
And
was
costly. Cost you a buck or
costly,
two.
tens of millions of dollars,
Wow.
and it was exhilarating seeing these teams go after the identification of it, the planning of it, and driving to get these things resolved to make sure they didn't disrupt anybody's holiday season.
Wow. Wow. That's cool. I just love this passion for the customer. I mean, I sort of miss that because all those different things you read, and I guess it was Incisive and AWS came out with a study and they talked to, I don't know, 400, 500 retailers, and they came out and said only 10% of retailers have an excellent customer experience rating. And it makes me wonder, what are the other 80, 90% doing? Why aren't they focused on this? Considering all of us are consumers and we know what bad customer service is. I
Yeah,
mean, the whole experience. So, it still surprises me today, being a retailer. I walk the malls. I walk the malls all over the world, wherever I'm at. And I do see great examples of customer experience, but I also see some pretty bad. But that's great that through the years of everything that you were working on, it was always voice of the customer, customer first. Oh, and by the way, how is this going to affect the population? I can't believe you had as many employees as you had at one time. But let me ask you this question. So 2 weeks out. So if the merchandise isn't in the stores, it won't ever get in the stores, right? Or
right.
are you okay? So if it's not there, it's not going to be there. Do you have any like quips on like, surprises that you had in the last 2 weeks? Like we had no idea this was going to be such a hot item, or this wasn't a hot item that we thought was going to be, the old days of stack it high and watch it fly. I mean, that's when you and I were, young men in our 20s
Yeah.
working in retail. So
Yeah.
anything along those lines?
Yeah. I have a one that nobody should ever try again.
Uh-oh.
And this one, it was, customer were driven by uniqueness and marketing wanted to have something that drove traffic. And there was one event one year that dealt with Cracker Jacks, and you get the prize in and so marketing decided to put pretty aggressive coupons inside of there. And so the
Inside of
first,
the Cracker Jack box?
yeah, yeah. And so, and nobody saw this coming, by the way, Ed. And
I
so,
think I know where it's going, but go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. And so the some of the stores got 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever it was, boxes of it, and they have four entrances, and people would come in, they'd get their box, and everybody there were literally no trash cans nearby, and people would tear open the box, dump all the contents out, get their one thing, see what their coupon is, and go shop. I have never seen so much Cracker Jacks in the carpet, in everything in my life. So I encourage people not to do that, particularly during one of the busiest Saturdays, just pre-Christmas. So,
What were you telling me about um, the escalator event?
yes, this is one of my favorite, and it really speaks to the innocence and the excitement of the season, a little bit of joy and fear and discovery. Um, we were about a week out from Christmas. I was in a Midwest store, and there was I'll call it a commotion, but it was almost like a calming at the bottom of the escalator, and people were 10 and 15 people deep, looking at the escalator. And I thought maybe somebody's passed out or something like that. But we went through and we identified that it was a Amish family who had brought their horse and buggy to the store, and they had heard a story about a moving staircase, which was the escalator.
No way.
And it was their first time to ever see anything like that. And they were apprehensive about getting onto it. And you'd see the little boy kind of run up and then stop, and he would be afraid to put his foot on it. And eventually they took a ride up and a ride down, and there must have been 500 or 1,000 people who watched in just amazement and joyfulness
Well, yeah,
as
the
they
the purity
discovered.
of it all.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah,
purity. Wow, wow. So,
yeah.
did you ever have any Santa Claus issues at any of the stores?
I was not involved on the Santa Claus side of it because most of the time I got the just the cleanup duty of the reindeer.
Ah,
Um,
I see.
but the Santa Claus side, I was not involved with it.
Okay, okay.
But I do remember there were joyful comments about Santa Land at Herald Square.
Yeah, because my past the mobile devices in the stores were
Oh,
managed by AirWatch, and I remember a project where they had an iPad that was
yeah,
managed, and instead of waiting in a long line, you can go up to the iPad and make a reservation with Santa,
yeah,
and then because then they're like, okay, now people are going to go in the stores and shop, then they're going to come back with all their bags, get their kid on Santa Claus's lap. You don't have to wait, the kid's not going to scream, and off they go. So I know
yeah.
there was projects like that.
Yeah, I do remember that one going through, and again, the voice of customer and voice of associate were critical in identification of some of a needed tool like that. And thank goodness Macy's had partners like yourself to be able to get that designed and built. And I'm sure that came out of one of the February recap meetings and said, we need to get this fixed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that probably puts you on the nice list. Yeah,
Yes, everybody.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
We were able to deliver, what they needed to be able to do that. Well, let me ask you this. What do you miss? What do you miss about the fact that the projects that you've done that have made the impact that you've done for the customer and for the employee? What do you miss?
Yeah, I would say it falls into two categories. I certainly miss the people, some of the best and brightest I've ever dealt with. And there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about. I'm going to reach out and see what partner A or partner B is up to, and it's just joyful in that. The second part is all of the activities around the voice of customer and voice of associates, and just trying to get the defects out and make things easier for the individual, for the shopping experience, take the friction out. And it's one of the reasons I'm really enjoying the AI side of it,
Yeah.
because, on some of this agentic stuff, if you invested as much time training your own agent or sales for person as we do on these agents, AI agents, all of a sudden you have a skill set that's there for the next 100 years
Yeah.
and
Good
is
point.
is consistent and that ability, like you were talking about the experience in stores. Well, some of the AI tools that are out there now can listen to as an example, a salesperson as they're talking with a customer and whisper in their ear about additional features they should mention or other
Talking point.
ways to
Yeah.
move towards a close and those types of things. And so I think I miss that constant improvement drive for the employee and customer experience.
You've been that way since I've met you.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, when I first met you, you guys, there was a CFO at Macy's many, 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 many years ago. You guys locked me in a conference room and said, "You're not leaving until we have a deal." Well, we got a deal, so
yeah.
everything
Got
was
a
fine.
deal, and
So
It was amazing, and I believe it was mutually beneficial.
Oh yeah. Oh, to be
The
able, hey,
relationship always was. So,
to be able to say Macy's was a customer, I was willing to go lower, but you're like, okay, that's good. So I didn't want to give any secrets. So what don't you miss?
um, the travel, and that's about it.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
that's fair. Well, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, at that time, considering, I know you're on the road and I know some of the people you worked for in the past, and I
yeah.
can see it's like, hey, Paul, we need you here. Hey, we need you there. Well, let me ask you this. So what would you tell yourself 37 years ago when you started at Macy's? What would you, if you had the opportunity, what would you tell yourself back then?
It's funny you mentioned that, Ed. When I was working towards when I was going to retire, which I had planned on retiring when I was 62, I retired when I was 62. And I had about a 10 or 15 year head start on knowing that I was going to do that. And so a small group that I worked with very closely, we spent the time in partnership with many of the Macy's HR group to identify top talent and to help prepare them while they're in their 20s and 30s to be able to take on the next uh, layer of all of this. And so I feel like in many cases, I told myself in my 20s and 30s what I would have in
Wow.
the form of training and developing the next group of leaders at Macy's.
I'm not shocked at all about your response. So we've talked about systems, we talked about store, we talked about voice of the customer, which I love. We talked about the frontline employee, which I'm ecstatic on a lot of the things that we talked about. Is there anything else before? Because I have a question for you before we finish up. Is there anything else you wanted to add, or like you really wanted to uh, discuss or put across? So this is my offer to you to like what else you got?
Yeah, I would say this. I would say I believe the service to the customer is going to continue to evolve. And whether it's AI or whether it's online or it's TikTok or whatever else
Yeah,
it is, that's going to continue to evolve. And um, you got to evolve with it.
yeah,
And you can't, you, you- you're better off leading than fighting it. And don't expect it not to happen.
yeah,
So
yeah,
be prepared. I guess that would be it.
yeah. Well, it reminds Terry Lundgren used to say, when you find yourself in hell, don't stop, keep going.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. So my question to you, I need some advice from you. You've known me a long time, and what I'm trying to do today. I'm working with worldwide companies, not just retailers, and I find it challenging knowing that retailers today are struggling with the customer experience through the surveys, if you believe half of the ones that are out there. What advice would you give me? Because I think our company has a lot to offer through what we've done with companies all over the world and what we're doing with some companies today that we're working with. What advice would you give to me for me to be able to promote myself and get more involved? Well, let's just talk specifically retailers of how we can help when it comes to CX, OpEx, transformation, all of that. What's the sweet spot? How do I get on your calendar when you were still there?
Yeah, I would put it this way: the best pieces when were and best partners, including yourself, were ones that were willing to listen and in some cases invest,
Hmm.
not to sell, because the selling comes through, I believe, data and process improvement, and so and I had many incredible partners over the years, but I would be able to convey voice of customer, voice of associate, what are our core issues, what are, if we've identified some root cause issues, and then be able to leverage knowledgeable people like yourself who have been across 10, 20, 200, 500 companies and have seen similar things. And rather than jumping to a conclusion saying, oh, let's apply this exactly to here, invest the time to make sure they more fully understand exactly what customer is talking about
Yep.
and help them with a solution.
Yeah.
And I remember many models of whether it was electronic signing or it was shoe locator or mobile POS or anything like that. It's in some cases people and executives don't understand something until they can physically see it or they know that there's an exact ROI. And so sometimes you have to do proof of concepts and uh, invest the time, invest the listening.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that because that's what I'm doing. That's why I've been flying all over the world lately, investing in our customers. So, Paul, this has been fantastic. I mean, we could probably sit there and talk for another hour, but I've already taken up enough of your time, and who knows, you might have a grandchild running behind you going, "Where's Grandpa?" So I'm
That's
going to
it.
let you go, but this was fantastic. I really appreciate the fact that we got to just catch up last week before we even decided that we were going to do this. So let's stay in touch. And nothing but the best. What's the name of the company one more time? Let's give you one more plug.
Yeah, it's Verson AI, VIRSYN.ai, and focused on the small customers. Again, trying to listen to voice of customer and voice of associate and make life easier.
Well, Paul, all I got to say is, as long as I've known you and what you've done, what a fantastic fountain of fantastic information. I learned something. I think we had a little fun. I don't think we ever got boring. If not, sorry, folks, but I think it
Yeah.
was great. These are the type of things I like to do. When I just talk to people and we just, we talk about what we've seen, what we've done, what's worked, what doesn't work, and what not to do. So I appreciate everything that you've shared for all the Macy's people that we've both worked over the years. I miss them. You miss them. Some great people were there. Some great people are still there. So, Paul, if there's nothing else that you would like to add, I just want to say thank you very much, and I think we're done.
All right. The only thing I'll add is happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
All right. Take
All
care.
right. Thank you.
Bye.